Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
Even for a January, things are moving fast. And guess what? If you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean that you're in the seats with once more. As always, my name is Dave Voigt, and I'm the host of this podcast, where we sit down with a wide-ranging variety of entertainment industry professionals who pick their brain about current projects, state of the industry, how they got started, and so very much more in a light and in a conversational fashion. And if you like how we do things around here for this audio-only experience, subscribe. Hit that subscribe button, give us a little 5-star rating on your podcast provider of choice. We're available pretty much everywhere, places like Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google, and plus we archive every single one of our episodes over our In the Seat YouTube channel. So if you can give us a like and subscribe there as well, we'd appreciate it. Also, don't hesitate to check us out on social media. We're everywhere. The Facebook X, formerly known as Twitter, or as I call it, Twix. Letterbox, Blue Sky, Threads, Instagram, TikTok. I lose track. There's too much. But we're at In the Seats for all sorts of fun updates. And finally, and I do dare say most importantly, please pay us a visit over at In the Seats. InTheSeats.ca for all the latest and greatest in the world of film, television, basically the movie image at large. Because guess what? If we love to watch it and write about it and talk about it, we love it all that much more when you come by and read about it and listen about it. So do us the ultimate kindness, come on by and pay us a visit. We'd really appreciate it. Things move fast in this business, and with today's guest, when I talked to him, he was a one-time Academy Award nominee. Now he's a two-time Academy Award nominee. That's it. We're on the awards trail once again, and we're diving into Bugonia. And we had the unique pleasure of sitting down with the composer of the film, the one and only Jerskin Fendrix, to talk about working on the film, working with Yorgos, dinner with Yorgos, as it were, and just sort of the complexities of how you approach a project like this in composing for film, and sort of the necessity for so many musicians out there to compose for film, TV commercials, so they can pay the rent, which is a sad but genuine reality for a lot of artists out there. But like I said, Bugonia has been nominated for an Academy Award for Best Achievement Music Score. If you haven't seen Bugonia, check it out. It's fun. It's a remake of a Korean movie, Save the Green Planet, which I also recommend. Again, it's weird. It's classic Yorgos. It's weird. It's fun, but it's trying to say something at the same time. But it's available on disc now, or still available in some theaters and video on demand. But as always, enjoy our talk with Jerskin Fendrix about the art of composing for the big screen, and just getting swept up into the nonsense that is award season. It's a fun movie, and it's a great conversation. So enjoy it, and we'll see you soon. All right, well, Jerskin, honestly, first off, man, just thank you so much for the time, and just congratulations on your work on Begonia. I appreciate the time today.
Thanks so much. No, I'm very happy to be here.
No, I guess my first question is because obviously this is not the first time you work with Yorgos. Like, walk me through sort of not only the origin of that story, but I guess him sending up the bat signal, going, "Hey, I got another movie for you."
Yeah, he tries. He generally does it with as little fanfare as humanly possible. He just mentioned over dinner, like, oh, we're doing another one next year, as you might know. Here's 3 words. Can you come back in a year with a score? And it's like, all right. And then I go home. That's it. I start writing.
I love it. I love it. Now, when you find out, like, do you just start writing, or do you see a script first? Like, what's your process?
This is the third time I worked with Yorgos, and generally the progression has been him unburdening me of information more and more per film. So I didn't get a script this time. He just gave me bees, basement, and spaceship as 3 words to work from, and then said, like, yeah, you've got about 12 months to write and record an orchestral score. So I don't get straight into composing instantly. I find that if I do that, I end up thrashing about too much at random, especially because, basically the possibilities are infinite, and the amount of freedom Yorgos gives you means that the possibilities are even more infinite. So I tend to do a lot of big research stage. I spend a lot of time at the library and at home and reading a bunch of books about, like, this one was great because it was like 3 words. What can you milk out of these fucking bizarre, unrelated things? So, like, basements, I was reading a lot of like architectural theory, a lot of Bachelard, bees. I spoke to the head of the UK Beekeeping Association, visited a bunch of bees. And for the spaceships, I went to various spaceship museums and was reading on a lot to do with the designs and the geometry of those sorts of things, which are really fascinating. And yeah, I'll just do that as long as I can until I realize I have to write something. And then by that point, there'll be these kind of invisible, unknowable kind of scaffolds already in place. And then the music tends to be a lot more directed and a lot more consistent with itself.
Well, I love that. I mean, even specifically just the idea that, I mean, because obviously Begonia is kind of inspired by a Korean film that happened, years ago. And I mean, I can imagine had you known that going in, that would have been a different rabbit hole you would have gone down altogether.
Yeah, I mean, I was aware because all the industry papers and stuff come up with
Right,
their things, and I was aware it was a remake, and Yorgos was like, "Don't you watch that don't you watch that
right.
original?" And I've got it because I care about my job, so I didn't.
Now, I mean, something that really has struck me, not just about the work you did here, but I mean, this is probably goes across all your stuff. It's your use of piano and it's your use of strings, because I mean, to me, from my perspective, those are the two instruments that can be minimalist but also big at the same time in terms of sound, and so sort of filling a space. Like, walk me through, I guess, finding the right sounds for a film like this, because it's one of those things where it almost feels, and I'm just hearing you describe it, it feels like Yorgos could almost be shooting to the music rather than sort of you making music to what Yorgos shot, if that makes any kind of sense.
Mhm. Firstly, with regards to strings and specifically piano, I'm very careful about these things. I didn't use any piano. I use piano in Kinds of Kindness, but there's no piano in Poor Things and there's no piano in Begonia. It's so it's such a straightforward thing, and there are so many contemporary composers who I think basically I'm not being very generous to my peers here, but I think often what happens is piano is a really solid,
Right,
straightforward
right, right.
instrument for a composer. They'll write the piano part for the whole thing, then they'll add a bunch of instruments on top, and then they'll forget to take the piano out. And you hear piano, and it's just like, it's like, do you remember like 10 years ago when salted caramel became a massive phase, and then you go to the supermarket and every single brand like Mars and Haagen-Dazs and everyone was like salted caramel this and that, and it's like this no longer means anything. And there are so many things that for some reason aren't used in film music. Like I try and use a lot of woodwinds because
Mm.
you never hear woodwinds in big things. Like you're not going to hear any, you'll hear big brass, big percussion, strings, and piano. Like no one's messing with oboes anymore often. So what was the other question?
Well, just in terms of, I guess because it does, the music does feel like it fits the film, but again, you going in as blind as
Oh
you
yeah,
are, it feels like Yorgos shoots to the music rather than you composing to what he shot.
I remember. Yes. Well, usually he gets me on to write a lot of the music. In this case, pretty much all of it, and before shooting starts. And so a lot of the time he'll play music on set just to get kind of like get the actors in, whatever kind of headspace. And there'll be a lot of butchering of the pieces I've written, which is great. But he doesn't use temp music, so like he'll always be editing films to the music I've already written.
Okay, okay.
Sometimes it's a demo, and then I'll have to go in and over record it, but usually it's pretty much already recorded. Um, so that helps with that, and it's so much easier to write abstractly, like to just be told write a bunch of stuff, and you get to have like the full spectrum of human emotion to write in versus you have to write a piece of music that's meant to show angst and frustration, and it has to be 31 seconds long, and at 22 seconds it has to reach a peak, and like I'm not talented enough to follow that stricture, so generally the pieces are written before editing starts.
How much of your job is in an office like you're sitting in now, like sort of writing and doing the work and figuring out the pieces versus, say, working with musicians? Because when we think of film composing, we think of John Williams in the pit, but that's not necessarily the way it is anymore.
If there was enough money for that to be 99% of it, that would be so dope.
It would be,
And
yeah, you're right.
it's important to be transparent about these things. I cannot tell you how expensive it is to spend 6 hours recording with an orchestra. I think for this film we had 12 hours in total with an orchestra. That's 2 days, and that is a lot for an indie film.
Yeah.
The like music is, yeah, 99.9% of my space is either in a space like this or pacing up and down the street, pulling my hair out. And then the final 0.5% I get to have contact with like one other person, or maybe in this case 90. But like that John Williams in the pit is not a large part of it. It depends though. I don't know. Some composers work really well with others, and they have big, factories of colleagues and assistants who help flesh things out. I know John Williams does a lot of, getting people to work from four-stave sketches and balloon those out into full orchestral scores. I don't know. A lot of it's isolated for me, at
Well,
least.
no, I mean that's fair though, and I mean it leads into my next question though, because more and more these days we're finding more musicians and singer-songwriters and that kind of thing getting into the space of film composing. And I'm curious, from your perspective, what is it about sort of the idea of composing for film and television that uses sort of different creative muscles?
That's not why most songwriters get it. The difference is you cannot make a living being an indie musician. It's impossible.
Oh
It
yeah.
is an impossible thing. I make a living being a film composer. If I was writing albums instead of film scores, I would not be able to pay my rent anywhere. That is 100% true. Due to Spotify,
Yeah.
due to touring costs, due to visas, due to American venues taking cuts of merch, things like as like it is impossible to live as a indie musician, really. But it is possible to live as a film composer. That's
No,
it.
and I mean, yeah, I mean, unfortunately, you're not wrong. I was listening to a lot of your stuff last night, and I was like, I'm unfortunately making this poor guy 4 cents just by streaming this right now, and if that, and I mean, it's one of those things that it's the sad reality of the business in terms of finding avenues to not only be creative but also to, like you say, pay the bills and
Yeah.
survive.
Yeah. No, no, absolutely. I mean, yeah, and I can talk, I can also talk about what different creative muscles get pulled doing scoring versus songwriting, and that's really true too. But like, I would be doing your listeners a disservice if I said, oh, I chose to do film instead of
Right, right,
choosing
right,
to do
right,
this
right.
for
Yeah,
some reason. And so many of my friends who do indie music are like looking for a way to work in film because they want to live and they don't want to have a non-music related day job and then be sucking out the last 1% of their energy in the evening trying to make a track. It's a sad reality. The different must, I mean, in terms of the actual creative side, luckily I feel like, so I write songs, I write the lyrics and sing them and so on, and they tend to be fairly autobiographical. And that takes up a really different tank of juice to the tank of juice it takes to write scores for different characters, for fictional things, for different stories. And usually when one tank's empty, the other tank's full. So that's really useful for me. And yeah, it's basically just the difference between when you're writing about yourself, you can wallow in your own emotions and it's fairly narcissistic and it's fairly fucking self-involved. And then when you're writing for other stories, other characters, say Teddy and Begonia, well, that isn't really, I wasn't actually writing for him this time because I didn't have the script, but Bella and Poor Things, maybe it's such an exercise in empathy. It's such an exercise in wiping your ego and your story and your background off the table. Um, I think it makes me better at writing stuff about myself later on, or I think it just makes me a more empathetic artist, I suppose. So I think it's a really good balance to not just be kind of focusing on your own bullshit the whole time.
no, I know primarily like you've had this relationship with Yorgos, and I mean the bulk of your work for film and TV has been with Yorgos, but I know you did a short, you've done some other stuff. How does the, I guess, having sort of someone like Yorgos to bounce off of sort of change your writing process, or does it?
It changed it less than I'd anticipated. I mean, the closest thing I'd done to film scoring before working with Yorgos was doing music for some theater when I was at university. Some of my friends directed plays and they asked for music
Right,
for their
right, right,
plays.
right.
And these would be people who'd be around my age, there'd be peers, and there'd be a lot of conversation about it. Like I'd come up with a melody or some sketches, and they'd be like, "Oh, that's cool. What if it went this direction? What if it was this instrument?" So my assumption was that working with Yorgos would be similarish to that. And then when I came up with a bunch of sketches for the first film we did together, I sent them over, and they were kind of half finished, and I'd recorded them on a really bad microphone in my really bad little studio with me playing the violin. And he was like, "All right, that's it, that's good, that's not." And I thought, oh, is there going to be a discussion like, oh, maybe this could be developed or changed. It's like, no, that's fine. And then it ends up in the film. And I'm like, I would have worked way harder on that if I knew that was it. Um, it's really like, yeah, all of the responsibility is on my head, and same with the other heads of department. Like it's not a big ongoing discussion and you don't form it together. He's delegating, he's giving you the responsibility, and that makes you work a lot harder and it makes you make decisions. He really doesn't want like, oh, for this theme in the film, he has 4 different ideas. It's like you choose the idea and you work way harder and you have to make, you're kind of doing some directorial work within your own department, and it makes you work a lot harder. Because if you know you're going to get feedback in a discussion, all you ever need to do is do one half-assed idea, and then it's going to be another half-assed, and it'll be 50% asked, 75% asked, 82.5% asked, and gradually it'll come to near to fully asked, like Zeno's paradox. But if you're just by yourself and you have to make the decisions, it will always be 100% asked.
Yeah. Can you, as an artist and a creative, can you like just create pieces in hopes of maybe down the road, okay, I'll work on this, but maybe I can shoehorn it into something later? Or do you have to have that direction from someone, especially when you're working in the space?
Nah, sometimes it comes, sometimes it does. Yeah, I think I've for all stuff, for songs, whatever, like I'll have some ideas that work really well. Usually what happens is, and they won't have a particular thing to attach to, and I'll attach them to something later. It's a really good question. I've not been asked that before. What I generally rely on is that when I'm doing that when I'm coming up with a sketch apropos of nothing that I'll probably use for something later, that won't, if it doesn't come out of a work prompt or a song I need to write or whatever, it'll usually come fairly extremely out of a certain emotion. It might be me reacting to some, news I heard that's really sad, or just feeling really low on energy, or feeling, really inspired by some concert I just saw. So it'll have I think a very relatable human emotion in it. And then when I need to make something towards that, I think, oh, I remember actually something I can empathize with that happened a few months or a few years ago, and I've got the recording of it. I'll see if I can shoehorn this in. Yeah, it's the same as, writing, like you're walking on the street and you think of a good joke and you write it down and maybe you use it in a lyric or your type 5 stand-up set or whatever.
No, I mean obviously we're in the throes of award season, and I know you've been nominated for an Oscar before, but I mean I'm curious because I've always found, at least personally, especially talking to people like you, that the nomination means way more than sort of the idea of winning a trophy at the end of the day, because the nomination is like an opportunity to maybe get more work down the line. Is that a fairly accurate statement, rather than sort of going through the whole process of dressing up and hoping you get a trophy and then going to a party?
Yeah, I mean, there are lots of different things. The Oscars is a weird thing just because, like, in the popular consciousness,
Yeah.
just through like media and shows, like it's like the award on, as well as like, I don't know, the Nobel prizes and stuff like that. So there's a lot of baggage around it. I mean, I know very rationally as an artist, some of the greatest filmmakers or musicians or whatever in history haven't been anywhere near a nomination for an Oscar. So like, I think I could be wrong, but I think hopefully I don't place any self-worth in terms of how good or bad I think my work is based on the nomination. Um, it's a fun thing to celebrate, though. It's like if you're upset because you didn't get a nomination, or you're happy because you got a nomination, it's not because, oh, my work's good, or oh, my work's bad. It's more like you got invited to a big party versus, oh, you didn't get invited to a big party. And it's the requisite sadness or happiness. And you can, again, I think being transparent about money is very important in the arts. If you get nominated for an Oscar, you can charge way more money to people when they want you to write some advert music for them. That is true.
Never hurts. Never hurts. And I mean, honestly, I'm curious because, like, for you as an artist, I mean, especially growing up, like, was there a piece of music or someone that you noticed where sort of music enhanced the image? Because I mean, I think back to Vangelis and like Blade Runner, and I mean, it
Mm.
was that sort of chocolate and peanut butter moment for me in terms of understanding how the two go together when it comes to the moving image. I mean, was there something similar for you, sort of in your younger days?
That's a really good question. That's a really good question. Betraying my own kind, I think for films, those moments were always soundtracks rather than scores. I
Oh,
remember the
fair. Oh, fair.
films, um, Bronson by Nicholas Winding Refn.
Oh yeah.
2001: A Space Odyssey by Stanley Kubrick, and The Royal Tenenbaums. I remember seeing all of those when I must have been somewhere between 10 and 13. And like all of that stuff was like, oh, because all of them music is used almost kind of as in the joke format, not in like not even particularly funny needle drops, but more like you expect a different thing, and then the set up expectation, subversion of expectation, just joke format. And all of those films, music is used often in this really, yeah, juxtaposed way. And it's kind of funny and it's kind of like a revelation. Those things were really important to me. I didn't know much about films. I didn't watch as many films as I should have when I was a teenager. It wasn't like my biggest thing. I was listening to albums more than I was watching films. Disney stuff I always really liked. I was a very sensitive little boy, and it was like stuff like Kelly Clarkson or My Chemical Romance or like Lion King or Mulan. Like when you get these real, like the real saccharine dripping chord sequences, you get like the minor fourth chord, and it's like, oh Jesus Christ. Being able to distill that into such like a syrupy concentration was I remember loving that since I can remember, that kind of thing.
Well, I mean, it's funny just 'cause, I mean, listening to your work on Begonia. I mean, there are parts of it. I mean, I think particularly with bees, maybe some of the other earlier ones. Like I almost think of like Bernard Herrmann and sort of almost sort of paying tribute to sort of those bigger sounds. I mean, for you as an artist, like, can you be influenced by other movies and sounds like that, or do you try to really put the blinders on when you go to sort of get these words from Yorgos and just go sort of think of not necessarily other things you've heard, but just sort of trying to think of, I guess sort of the idea of the words that are trying to be inspired by.
Yeah. Generally when I'm in the writing process or even the research one, I'll put the blinders on as much as possible. I'll listen to other music usually pretty rarely in these periods. And if I do, I'll try and make sure it's like doo-wop bop or something rather
Right,
than
right, right.
orchestral stuff. But I trust myself to have listened to enough that it's going to be all going in there somewhere,
Of course,
and
yeah, yeah.
it'll come out in odd ways. Like I'll write a piece of music, and then in 5 years time or so, I'll remember a thing I listened to when I was 12, and I'll put it on. I was like, oh, I accidentally stole the bassoon line from that, and it's fine. And it's I can't remember if it was Charles Bukowski or whatever who did the quote, but it's like if you only eat tomatoes, your shit's just gonna look like weird, gross tomatoes. But if you eat a really big, varied diet, then not only is your shit gonna be untraceable, but it's gonna be nice and balanced. That is definitely not what he said, but I can't remember. God. Anyway, the point is, yeah, it's I trust there's enough rattling around in my from what I've listened to that there's the thing I would have needed to listen to, I'll have probably already listened to. I hope.
Well, I mean, I think it kind of referenced back to something you said earlier. Like, if you inadvertently steal an oboe riff, it means you're just paying attention. It doesn't mean you're sort of trying to crib on somebody else's work, right? You know?
Mm. Yeah, and like it's the difference between there's also I can't remember who if anyone said it, but my older brother always said it when I was a kid. It was like talent imitates, genius steals, which is
Exactly. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
the interesting is like when you imitate a cosmetic thing, and everyone can tell you're imitating, and you're not actually you're imitating a very surface level thing. If you are going to steal, you can't steal the surface level thing because everyone's going to notice. You have to work out behind all of the noises and machinations, like what's the impetus? Why does that drop hit so much harder in like Boom Boom Powered by Black Eyed Peas than Dance Yourself Clean by LCD Sound System? And it's not to do with just production, something
Yeah,
there's like a spirit there somewhere. And like if you're gonna steal, that's way better than imitating, but you have to steal something invisible.
yeah.
So that's important.
So, I mean, just to put a bow on this, at the end of the day, dear, are you hoping for more dinners with Yorgos for the next projects, or are you hoping for dinners with someone else? Like, where do you see yourself going, sort of in the film composing world, after these three with Yorgos?
I like dinners with Yorgos greatly, especially because takes a great quasi-parental role in insisting I need feeding up. So every time we eat together, he'll make sure I eat a great deal of meat and keep pushing food on me, which is very sweet and caring, and I like that. So in general, if he never made a film again and we just got to have dinner together in Greece, that'd be lovely. Um, I know he's taking a break at the moment for a while, really, which is really, really good because he's been working flat out for I don't know how many years. In terms of other things, I don't know. I'm not rushing towards something. I feel so lucky about how I've been able to work with Yorgos and having met a lot of film composers now over the last few years of general industry stuff. I realize even more how lucky I am in my position. There's a lot of film composers who get backseat artisan and ref scored and temp scored, and I'm not rushing into anything that won't be a really good use of my artistic time, and that is a massive privilege to have. I'm so grateful that I can be in that position. If something really good comes up, I'll do it. But yeah, I'm not rushing.
Well, I mean, Jerskin, just again, man, I hope something finds you soon because honestly, I loved your work on this and just I've loved your work with Yorgos and just thank you for the insight. And again, thank you for the time today, man. I really do appreciate it.
Of course, it's been a really lovely conversation. Thank you, David.
And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.